Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
Welcome back to another episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. We're here with Steve Lord, the sales representative for Advanced Turf. How you doing this afternoon? Obviously, on the road and everything. For those that are listening,
Sure, doing good. Just from the mobile office, as we like to call it, on the dark side of the industry here.
I can only imagine. I wouldn't say I would be looking forward to the driving portion of a job like that for sure. But
oh man, it's one of those that coming from my background in baseball, being on the same 2 acres every day, I've kind of enjoyed it. Quite frankly, it's
very true.
It's a good chance to get out, get on the open road, see a little bit of something new every day. So it's been great.
Absolutely. That's incredible. Now, obviously, you spoke a little to it, obviously, with the Reds, and obviously before that, you got a lot going on with Advanced Turf and what you've been doing. But a lot of that's rooted in your knowledge from, the incredible years spent in Cincinnati and there before. Could you sort of talk to a little bit what came before Advanced Turf and how that has played into your role currently at Advanced Turf?
Sure. So, backstory for me, I'm a Michigan native. I grew up in super tiny town in northeastern Lower Peninsula called Mayo, Michigan. Graduated class of like 60 kids, kind of small. Always knew I wanted to go to Michigan State. Grew up with an older sister that had gone to MSU, and so time came. Had an idea. I wanted to work outside. Wanted to do something. Didn't know exactly it was going to be turf. But it seemed kind of what Heather had going on over the Tigers, and especially with America opening right in that stretch. I graduated in '02, so seeing the new stadium open and all that stuff was really cool. But I grew up 4 hours north of Detroit. I was lifelong Tigers fan, and kind of started hunting around my senior year and realized that Michigan State, actually had a really good turf management program, and at that point had decided I was going to make a flip to, thought at that time I wanted to do golf. I played baseball and golf in high school. Really thought I wanted to get into golf course management. Started at Michigan State's program, declared turf really quick, and spent a couple of years at the front end of college working at a 72-hole resort in northern Michigan. And, great place. I think each course had 6 or 8 people on it. So it's one of those that you get a chance to do everything right out of the gate. You're mowing greens, you're changing cups, you're working traps, you're mowing rough, you're mowing fairways. Good hands-on experience. But, as much of an early riser as I still am, I've never been someone who wants to start the day, at 6 o'clock and be done at 2. And as an 18-year-old kid, you're sitting there going, man, I get out of work at 2 and all my friends are working till 5 or 6. So started dabbling in the sports side. Got an opportunity to work with Dennis Klein, who's now been at the Texas Rangers since 2007. But when I had to choose my junior internship, went down to Round Rock, which is AAA for, at that time, the Astros. They just moved to AAA. Worked a season for him down there in '05. Did another year in '06 in golf, and then went back to work with him in '07 when he took over the Rangers. And kind of from there, spent 8 years at the Rangers, worked my way up to being the first assistant, and time came to move my wife and kids back closer to home. She's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. We met at Michigan State, so we took the full circle on a shot at a job in Cincinnati with the Reds, and had a great 6-year run there. I think at the Rangers, I hosted 2 World Series back-to-back in 10 and 11. And then at the Reds, I got the opportunity to host the All-Star game, I think in the first 90 days I was in the job there. So that was a ton of fun, just coming in and taking on a big event like that. And, so to your first question, that's kind of a backstory, but, all the way along, I've always valued my sales reps anywhere I've worked, valued getting relationships going with them, learning about their products, learning what they can offer. And honestly, my rep with Advanced Turf in Cincinnati, Harry Helsel, Grass Guy 42, for those of you who follow him on Twitter. He's my guy. I mean, through and through, he helped me with our renovation in 2019. He was there from day one, and has been, a great mentor as well as a, great agronomic programmer with me to kind of help give me advice. He was obviously super familiar with the area. I'd been to Cincinnati once in my life before I took the job there, and that was for the interview. So just learning the geography, learning the ropes with the field. They're sitting right on the Ohio River with 100% pretty ryegrass. Was a challenge to learn. Got a couple years in. We did, I think, 4 seasons back before we flipped out to the Kentucky bluegrass that's there now. And yeah, I'm one of the few guys I can say that probably managed Zoysia Bermuda grass and what did I do? Zoysia Bermuda, 100% prairie ryegrass, and 100% Kentucky bluegrass field in my career.
God bless you on the 100% perennial ryegrass for 4 years. Oh my gosh.
I'll tell you what, I have an intimate knowledge of gray leaf spot, and it's not something anybody likes to play with. Let's say that.
That's not what you want to know, right?
It is a challenge, and it's like risk aversion all the time. So yeah.
And it's funny because you talk about gray leaf spot and you have time to figure out usually when you're in those positions, but in the pros there's zero time on top of people on top of it. So I can only imagine. Obviously, being an MLB head groundskeeper, there's a lot of stress, a lot of things like that. What was that experience like, and how is it being able to create your own? I mean, again, back to the ryegrass. I can't believe you had to do that for 4 years, but creating sort of your own space and, like you said, only being there once, being the interview in that town. What was that experience like to be able to develop your sort of own, crew, your own nutrient management plan, all the different things you need? You talked a little about the sales reps helping you and all that. What was that like for you and being able to experience that, at the pro level?
I mean, it was one of those things that I always joke that Dennis that I'd worked under at the Rangers before that. I mean, he's literally probably my best friend in the world still to this day. I mean, Dennis and I go so far back, been there for each other, a lot of stuff. But I mean, he was one of those guys that when we got to like 2009, I'd been there a couple of years full time for him as assistant. And he was like, "Listen, man," he always calls me the big man. "Listen, big man, you got the keys to the car. Keep it out of the ditch." And from there, it was like, you make your acquaintances, you find the guys you want to use, you find the products you want to use, and we'll roll with it. It was full trust on it. We have such a good relationship. That's one of those things that we got to that point. He was just like, "Man, I want to give you the keys to the car. I want this to be your house too, just like it's mine," and work from there. So by the time I got to Cincy, it was great. I understood the value and the reps that I had found it. In Texas, we were a big Florentine user at that point, and I had a really good Florentine rep there. I got to Cincinnati, no shade on the guy, but he didn't feel like he was there for me. Relationship with the ATS rep, he'd been there since they built the stadium in 2003, and so for Harry and I to go through it, it's like it was one of those things. Harry knew exactly. He wasn't the guy that told you what you had to do. He wasn't the guy that was like demanding you to follow his program. He sat down with right out of the gate. He's like, "Listen, man, talk me through what you like to do. Talk me through what you're not secure with. Tell me what works, what doesn't work, what you like to." And then we went from there. And it was like, dude's a great steward of our industry and just was great at helping me when I needed help, and telling you when you're going to overstep. Because as a kid, I was 30 when I took that job. You're like, "Man, I need someone here to at least check me and tell me, dude, what you're doing, what you're about to do is crazy. Don't do that." Because I find respect in that, especially for a guy in his case. I mean, he's worked with probably 100 golf courses in that northern Kentucky, Southwest Ohio region. If he's going to see gray leaf spot on a tee box on a driving range tee 30 miles west of this, he's going to let me know. And it might be 2 weeks ahead of one weekend. So it's like, those kinds of things, and using your reps to battle the things that you don't see when you're staring at the same 2 acres every day, it goes a long way. So I mean, for me, that was a big thing. Was building my program was one thing, but then building my crew was another thing. And honestly, when I took over there, Doug had a fantastic crew. His first assistant, Derek Grubbs, is head groundskeeper there now. Derek's been there since the stadium opened. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's probably the most mechanically inclined person I've ever met in my entire life. Could build completely amazing things out of nothing. And then Robbie Dworkin was the second assistant. Robbie went over to FC Cincinnati for a couple of years, dabbled in golf, and is back with them now. In his second stint, and now he's the first assistant there. I mean, as good a guys as it gets. The crew that was underneath him, we had some guys that slipped out the first year, and we're kind of like, hey, we like Doug. Maybe we don't jive just right, but like for the most part, over my 6 years there, I bet we lost at most one or two people a year. And I mean, just coming into a crew that has great continuity, I had that same feeling with our crew in Texas. So it was like, it was a really, really nice match for my skills, taking care of everybody. It's a very family atmosphere there, and it's small market baseball. So it's it's the team effort that gets anything done.
Absolutely. And again, small market baseball with ryegrass, that's extra small market. Sorry, I got to get over that.
It's tough, man. It was stabilized too, so it's a hybrid system, which there's not too many of those around. So you could probably add a little heat factor in.
Throw that in there, right?
There, so,
just throw that in there. Why not? Obviously, going from being the head groundskeeper of an MLB team, we talk about 32 jobs or however many people there are. Making that switch to advanced turf, there's a lot of different components that go into that. What are some of those things that, after such an incredible career, and again, influencing so many of us in our industry, being able to see what you did, how you accomplished it at the highest level, working with some of, the most incredible people. What was that, decision-making process like for you, and just moving forward, into advanced turf, where again, you are still an incredible steward of our industry, and continue to grow as as an industry as a whole with everything you're doing there.
Sure, at least you're there. You're still there.
You there?
Yeah. I mean, I thought I lost you for a second. I might have jumped the tower. Sorry about that. But
no worries.
No, yeah, it's completely different. It's completely different when you when you go from being in a specific specialized niche of an industry like that, and then coming over to turf sales. I mean, I can tell you everything I did on that 2 acres year in, year out for, the last 5-6 years, and know that through and through, and I've obviously, I got a degree from Michigan State, turf management. I got all those things, certified sports field manager, but coming to this side, I would bet that 30% of my book of business and sales is legitimately sports turf. And then the other 70% of it is turf and ornamental for lawn and landscape companies. And you're talking about, I mean, everyone always goes, oh man, that's such a specific high-end golf course style niche of sports turf. But man, I'll tell you what, lawn care is its own animal. You've got everything else to learn with that. I mean, I would say it took me a good year to get good feet under me with my folks, because I know the agronomy side of it. But it's a completely different game when you're playing with those customers that I have on that lawn care side. A lot of it, it's their own funds. It's their money at the end of the day. It's their dollar, their labor, everything. So it's, respecting their operation, respecting their agronomy, understanding where to interject, where not to. Even some of the product lines, some of the stuff that you don't use every day in sports turf management, just picking those things up, learning those things. I mean, I would tell you right now, like we have a rep we hired on recently in the last year or so that's in Michigan here, and he and I talk every day, and he's like, man, how do you know all this stuff? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like in the last couple of years, you just pick up anything and everything, and every interaction you have with people where you learn, whether it's how they do their things, or whether it's, something that is agronomic practices that maybe I wasn't taking care of, or I wasn't doing specifically in my niche of the industry. It was a huge adjustment on that side. So, I mean, it's been really fun to learn the business side of how these lawn care operators, both small and large, work. And that's honestly been my biggest change. My sports field guys, people call me and ask sports questions. It's like, oh man, this is the easiest thing I'll do a week. It's just, riffing with guys on sports turf stuff. I mean, Mitch at the Whitecaps is fine. It's like, Mitch will call me with the turf question of the week, like once a week. And he'll be like, hey man, what do you think about this? And it's like, oh, this is like butter. Like my mind can just fly through. Damn, I got to think this through, because I could tell them 3 different ways to do this, and none of them are wrong. But what's the one that best fits whether it's their operation or their people, their comfort level with certain chemicals? Like it's been a ton of fun coming over the side of it, and I've learned probably a ton more on the lawn and landscape side.
Now, obviously, when you talk about advanced turf, what are some of those things that you're focusing on? And you talked about lawn and landscape being 70%. There's a lot of grass out there. That's what I always tell my kids. There's a lot of different spaces, a lot of different ways. What has it been like for you to see full circle, being able to take all your knowledge from sports field management, from your college, and you talked a little about too, but being able to come full circle at Advanced Turf, and what are some of the things that you've been able to implement when it comes to selling the product? Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that we know nothing about.
Sure. I mean, I spend a lot of time, I think, when I talk with my clients, and a lot of it comes down to like, what is the best way to maximize the dollar spent? And some people say, well, that's always the cheapest way. It's like, well, not necessarily. Like, cheap isn't always the best, right? And there's certain products that may be valuing your labor dollar better to use. And, I mean, I've talked for 40 minutes this morning with one of my guys down in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area that went from 2 years ago. He spread 6 rounds of fertilizer every 4 weeks, and he's a single operator lawn care guy. And he's like, man, I am killing myself. Right, I'm pumping bags all day long, trying to get them out there, and I'm just dying here. It's not quite large enough to where he can afford a tech yet, and he's trying to figure out how to keep his quality high, keep his his value to his customers super high, his results very great, but it's like, what else do we have out here? Can we find ways, instead of me spreading every 30 days, something else? What can we do? And so we've played around with one of the plastic coat ureas that are out there. It's the Epic technology that EC Grow carries, and we've got him down to 3 rounds this year granular. And he's like, dude, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. He's like, it's I don't know why you didn't talk me into this 3 years ago. And I'm like, well, it's a feel thing, right? Like, I'd love to have said, hey, right out of the gate, it's the greatest thing in the world, but when you don't know me from Adam, what are you going to trust me on it? So finding ways to help, it really comes down to me. Like, I'm a relationships guy, and like, to build something with your clients that you can tell adds value to them. That's not just, hey, I saved you $4 today. Like, something that physically to their year, he looks at, he's like, I'm handling half the amount of product. I'm having better results, not killing myself. I'm home to spend more time with my family. Those are the kinds of things that, like, it doesn't happen overnight. That's what, like, I was talking with another guy who's doing sales for a different company. We were talking about it, and I said, man, like, it's so hard coming out of turf operations where you're used to seeing something happen every single day, right? Like, you have to have that result. I mowed the grass, the stripes look beautiful. I worked the dirt, everything's perfect. But in sales, it doesn't happen. There's people that, like, I had a customer I picked up this spring that I've been working on for 3 years to get any business with. And I got like an $800 order from it. That was the greatest $800 feeling, because you're like, it's so good for us for me to even get a shot again, right? And it's not much to his business, but he gave me a shot finally. So that's been the fun stuff with it. It's like just helping find ways to make the customers' lives easier, make their quality better. And that's, whether it's sports or whether it's lawn and landscape, that's what, at the end of the day, I have fun.
Now, obviously, the relationships are huge. What are some of the things as a sales rep you're able to do to develop those relationships? Obviously, you have events that you guys put on, you have different things that you're working with. But for you specifically and for Advanced Turf, what have you guys been able to do? And like you said, you're in Michigan, right? You're pretty much the whole state of Michigan. Okay.
Yep.
What are some of those things that you're able to do, and how have you been able to connect? Obviously some people are like, oh, he worked for Cincinnati Reds. He was that groundskeeper. I know him pretty good, I might name drop right there,
it's funny, man. Like, some of that, I always think it's funny because, like, when I came out with ATS, like, my rep Perry Elson down in Cincy, he was like, hey, how's that fly when you tell a lawn care guy that you were the head groundskeeper at Cincinnati? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, you tell him that, right? Like, yeah, I'll put it in a note if I'm sending an introduction. But at the end of the day, they're like, yeah, that's cool. You took care of 2 acres. I take care of 600. What do you got? It's like,
I love it.
You think in your head it should hold tons of weight, probably.
Just a little bit.
The no person thinks. But it's like, it's at the end of the day, it's like, hey, man, everybody else is an operator somewhere in the industry. They're doing something else. Like, you might find a guy that's like, hey, I have 11,000 customers, and I don't want a guy who does sports turf. I want a guy who knows specifically high-end lawn care. Like, yeah, go pound salt, bro. Like, there's plenty of that along. But no, like, for me, you spend a lot of time analyzing different businesses that are around and trying to develop opportunities. Like you said, there's tons of events, right? So you're going to do your industry events. I'm a member of Michigan Sports Field Managers Association. I jumped on the board at the first chance I had there. In Grand Rapids, I'm the Association of Grand Rapids Landscape Professionals. I'm on that group. So just anything you could do to get in front of folks, help them out. Maybe even if it's just holding an event or sponsoring an event. For us on this end of it, people are always like, "Oh, well, you got to do all the events. You have to do it." It's like you do, but while you're there, you need to make connections with people. You can't just sponsor an event, go sit in the corner, and not be able to talk to people. So that goes a long way. I mean, we host our winter education events. So we had one in Grand Rapids, one on the east side of the state over in Novi. We had one up in Traverse City. I try to make it to as many of those as I can because I'll obviously invite my clients over there. We'll invite prospects and anyone else that wants to come, pick up Michigan sprayer credits and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's literally, it's all about communication. So I spend hours, sending emails, texts, and calls, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Keeping in touch with your folks and the folks that you think would be good fits for us to do some business together. And some of that takes time. Some of it is like I send a monthly email blast to I bet I'm up to 500 or 600 people that I send it to every month. And I try to tailor it to their business. So I spend a lot of time individualizing those. I'm not going to send something about grass seed to a company that does nothing but spraying and spreading. They don't care about grass seed. They're like, so you spend a lot of time developing those different avenues that, okay, these are guys that really like grass seed. They really want to learn about this. These are guys that, talk to me about this at our industry events, taking notes. I mean, just making sure these people through and through. I mean, because some people call you twice a year. That's all they want to talk to you. And then there's people that I talk to, like person I talked this morning at Arbor, I talked to him probably 3 days a week all through the season. And it's just because he respects the advice and he wants to talk through what he's seeing in the field versus what I'm seeing around the state. I cover what's essentially a 2.5 mile wide territory one way and 2.5 the other, and about 2 hours south and north each direction. So I see a lot across the state of Michigan, and it helps to fill in with people on whether they're figuring, hey, like right now, do we still have some chances left with dimension? Are we out of GDDs? Do we have, if I'm going to start seeding, are the soil temps high enough for me to start seeding tall fescue versus ryegrass or Kentucky bluegrass? So there's a ton of that. I mean, I'm just continuously keeping my guys in order to make sure that they're maximizing their time and not wasting product on jobs that is going to go anywhere for them.
Now, obviously, it's been talk of a lot of different groups, more specifically sports, turf, and golf. Has Bermuda creeped up there yet?
It has, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm curious what you've seen and how it's sort of like played a role in it's a bit different beast, especially. I know we're probably closer to the same temps, but it's definitely colder up there most of the time.
Yeah.
But we're in that transition zone down here in Virginia, but I'm just curious how it does up there.
So, I mean, Bermuda's been in Michigan forever. I mean, Dr. Beard brought it to Michigan State for testing. And if you go around MSU's campus, I mean, there's still every which way possible. There's, random common Bermuda grass types that have been living on top of storm drains and sewer tunnels and you name it forever. And it's amazing, seeing how all the breeding's gone to it over the last 20 years. You've seen a ton of change in how the breedings work to obviously make those more cold tolerance. I don't have a ton of customers who have put it in up here. I would tell you everybody I have that has Bermuda grass in Michigan is trying to get rid of it. So, but no, I mean, I think one of your recent guests, Adam Russell, that you know pretty well. Yeah. I mean, Russell and I have talked a couple times about it. Michigan, University of Michigan had looked at playing with some in Gold Mouse on their soccer complex. So they've got, they have 365 SS in their 3 fields there. And he's like, man, I really want to pull a tester and put it in one of the 6-yard boxes on one of the practice fields and see what we can get out of it. So it's coming here. I mean, I talked to Mitch over at the Whitecaps, who's got a big field renovation this fall with the Moats group, I think, and Ryan DeMay over at Field Source, been working with them from the start. And a couple of times, I know he said it to DeMay. He said, "Hey, man, what if we went Bermuda? Honestly, give me your thoughts on it." And I mean, it's getting close where someone's going to do it up here. I mean, I know Chicago's done a lot with it, but I think someone in West Michigan is gonna be the first one to try it because it's just typically a little warmer, a little earlier, a little sandier, a little hotter with
I gotcha.
the ocean or the lake depths over there. So I
Did,
think we'll see someone put it in, but I don't have anyone yet. I've just had a lot of guys try to spray it out.
did you see the Bears stadium?
Yes.
That's definitely an artificial field right there. I saw it. I was like, ah, well, the original one was going to be natural, but that one's not.
Yeah.
Oh, good times. Obviously, when you talk about like being well connected in our industry, there are so many things that go into, introducing in Bermuda grass or getting rid of it, whichever way it's going. How has it been to be able to, bring in sort of different industry professionals from your connections and having them have an impact on how you're able to, whether that's sell, be able to develop new things for the advanced turf for the company for all that. What has that been like being able to bring in sort of people from the outside to help with it, grow advanced turf because you guys have grown so much even since you started there from what I've seen.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been expanding. I mean, shoot, we were all at Virginia Beach and out that way. We're down to the Carolinas. We've got a rep in Texas. Yeah, we picked up Valley Green in the Northeast, so we've added Valley Green will switch over, I think, this year to ATS through and through. Yeah, so we're expanding at a crazy rate, but honestly, it's carrying great product lines. It's having great manufacturer reps that are there to support you when you have questions or when you're talking to folks about products you might not be 100% comfortable with. I mean, Matt Weber over at BASF. I mean, Weber's been invaluable to me. Because I knew him when I was in Ohio, but I didn't know him well. And since coming over here, he's just been through the roof helpful with everything. I mean, my lawn care side, the guys at EC Grow have been unreal to me to help me build. We built a product for the client this year in Jackson, Michigan. That I mean, the guy was so specific with exactly what he wanted, and being able to work with a custom blender like that to build, he's ordering in the truckload capacity of 880 bags at a time to keep this operation running, and he's just like, this is exactly what I've always wanted to do, and I could never find anybody that would do what I wanted to do. So I mean, having great manufacturers that can help us to build different products, help us to really answer the questions that someone might be struggling with. It's been awesome. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite parts about being here is if I have a question, like I will call anybody from anywhere and they will always give you an answer, right, wrong, or otherwise. And it's like, take it for what it is, but it's you can never have enough help, and there's always questions you're not going to know. So, I mean, to me, it's like you use that network nationwide. It doesn't matter if it's, I've called other reps with other companies that I know. Like I call Josh Koss, that's out with, I think he's with the Heralds now out in Colorado. Koss and I talk probably once a month. And we're just riffing on what's going on or what we see because he takes care of, he's got some sports field guys out there in the Denver area. And I've got, sports field guys over here. We're all growing KBG, but, we're growing it differently, right? He's in a more arid region. So, I mean, there's everybody under the sun. I've got a really good friend at at Heritage, a Heritage Group now. He just got bought up by Home Depot that I've known for 10 years, and he and I'll riff back and forth on stuff and bounce ideas off each other when we run into stuff. And same thing all the way through at our organization. I mean, like you said, we've expanded a ton. We've added a ton of reps. We have a meeting twice a year where everybody gets together, and those meetings, it's like I always pick 3 people I don't know. I just go introduce myself and talk because it's like you never know when you'll need to call somebody and ask a question. I mean, I didn't honestly, for how close I was to Marcus Dean geographically when he was, at UK and I was at the Reds, I didn't know him at all. And I mean, shoot, Marcus called me 2 days ago. We text back and forth. Like it's a guy that I've gotten to know really well, and I can ask him questions. Ask anyone in our organization. You ask around, and anyone will talk to anybody. It's a great group of guys and gals. So all of that goes a long way, whether it's the manufacturer side or internally with our folks.
I love it. That's awesome to hear. You talked a little about, carrying good product. What has that process looked like for you guys at Advanced Turf? And maybe it's a different department or anything, but what is that like, ensuring that you have those best products, and whether that's adding new ones, if you guys have talked to certain people, if you've talked to certain groups, what has it been like being able to sort of have those best products in order to ensure you guys have the best, business possible?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of that that goes into it that I don't touch at all. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
I assume,
I
but
mean, there's that's
maybe there's a
yeah,
little influence,
that's a little higher up the food chain, but no, at the same time, I mean, we have a ton of products in house that, like Mark Seibot sits in over in the Indianapolis area. Mark's been one of our, I would call him like our tech director when it comes to like finding new products or finding ways to change things. I mean, we talk very intimately with ENP Technologies that makes our foliar pack line. So whether it's formulating new liquids or formulating using technologies in different ways, we've had a ton of internal input, and that really drives a lot of the stuff we bring out, or a lot of the things that, if we're missing on a line. Sometimes it's as easy as asking, "Hey, this is something we're not carrying in Michigan. Maybe it's something I need in my geography." Our purchasing group is phenomenal at trying to make sure that if we have a hole in our in our catalog that we need, then they're finding ways to make a connection so we can get that happening. I mean, I would say probably a couple of years back, 2 years ago, we didn't hardly sell any hydro mulch in Michigan. I mean, it's super competitive market. One of the manufacturers up here fell out, and I noticed a hole in the industry. And I mean, we've kind of taken that, and now we stock something in Michigan that helps a lot of our clients stay rolling every week, because it's we had an access point to it with a group out of Profile Products, quite frankly, and it was something that we had only been carrying for the most part south of the Ohio River. And I mean, shoot, now there's 4 or 5 warehouses that are stocking it across our our northern geography just to keep guys rolling all the time. So, but just those little simple feedbacks, there's no stone that's not worth turning over to at least find out. If you find something that adds value to your group, then you got to at least make sure that it's in play for us.
Now, I do want to sort of switch back to sports turf. I know that you're all over the place, golf and landscaping and lawns and everything.
Yep.
But obviously, you've done a lot for the association. You've done a lot for other industry professionals across the country in your time in the industry. What has it been like, to be able to have a role in the sense of whether that's working on boards, doing different things, but being able to have that connection and being able to grow it, not just in Michigan, but nationally, growing our industry to new heights and grow to the point where we're going to be better off here in the future.
Sure. So I mean, to me, it's that stewardship piece that you either have or you don't, right? It's hard to teach it into people. So you either grow up wanting to be a leader, or wanting to be a steward of your industry. And for me, it was just, I looked at it as one of those things that, at first you're like, man, this is a great way to build a network. I want to meet as many people as I can. And, from the relationship side, that's a big piece of it for me, is getting to know anybody and everybody and asking questions. Cause we were, at some point we were all 18 years old and trying to get started. But it's been something that for me, I mean, I grew up with parents that were super involved in our community, that wanted to make sure that they were providing the best for their kids and the other kids in the community. And so I kind of just grew up seeing that a lot, thinking like, well, from our community on the turf side, it's not a small geographic community by any stretch, but anything I can do to help the industry, it's like I got to be a part of it, just because I don't know. You figure, you talk to the guys that came before you, the people that are coming after you. I mean, when I got started with Dennis in Texas, Tom Burns had just left. Tom Burns went to Diamond Pro at that point. I mean, Tom didn't know me from anybody, and he's been easily, one of the greatest people to me in the industry since then. It was just one of those things. He picked me up and was like, "Hey, dude, if you ever need anything, let me know." I mean, every time I see him at conference, big old hug, dude. I mean, we're the guys that like, and I never worked for Tom. I've known him for, whatever, going on 15 years probably now. And just anywhere you see the guy, you just have that respect for each other. And I saw him when I was working for Dennis. I saw him as, I think at one point he was the SFMA president, and you're just like, this is a guy that has it together. Or he was on the board. I can't remember what it was. And it was just like, that's a guy like, that has the skill, that understands the reason to lead. And I want to be that. So just something that I've always encouraged my interns, and I had interns, whether at Cincy or at the Rangers, is just one of those things like, you grow your network, but you also need to be a leader in that industry. And, we've had a lot of folks that have come through my internship program that I still see doing a ton of stuff. I mean, Colby Murray down at University of Houston, I mean, one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet, but is serious about, anything he puts on there, whether it's on Twitter or otherwise. He is trying to push the industry and try to push him, his character and the good time that they have down there. And I think it's important whether you're joining boards, whether you're getting on committees, any of that stuff. It goes a long way to be, even if it's just a little bit of involvement. If you have time to get on one of them, that little bit of involvement goes a long way to show everybody that you're helping push the industry forward.
Now, you told a story, and I don't know if you remember this. I think you put it on Twitter, and I use it as an example all the time about a family friend, I believe, about I think Nebraska. Is that ringing a bell?
Oh, probably Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, either way.
Yep.
If you could tell that story a little bit, because I mean, I think it's probably one of the most powerful things that people don't really understand about this industry and don't understand about,
Sure.
The little things that can have an impact. But like, it's an incredible story that I think people need to hear. If you could just give us a little.
Sure. Yeah. So somewhere along the way, when I was in Cincinnati, two of my good friends from college that went through Michigan State's packaging program. One of them was a roommate. One of them was his good friend. The latter of the two ended up in the Milwaukee area in Wisconsin, and he's gotten married, and his wife's family, she had a couple brothers or that kind of thing, and one of the brothers had a son, and so the guy's name is Jason Willis is a good friend of mine, and Willis, as we call him, was just like, hey, text me one weekend. He goes, hey, I'm not going to be in town, but my nephew's going to be in town with his folks. They're big baseball fans. Could you leave them some tickets? And if it's not too much, they'd love to come down and see the field if they could do anything. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'll see what I could do. Never try to make promises, but see what we can do and leave the tickets, get him a chance to come down. He walks the field with us. And I mean, shoot, at that point, he might've been like 12 or 14. Like it was the first couple of years I was in Cincinnati. And he was just like, yeah, it'd be really cool for him if you can have him out in the field. And the kid's name is Owen Stano. Owen goes to University of Wisconsin now, but they just reached out on the off chance, and Owen didn't realize turf management was a thing. He had no idea it existed. He's a kid that grew up playing baseball, loved baseball, and just that's why they asked. So long story short, he comes out, he tours the place for like an hour, bring him down to the warning track, he and his folks, just say hi for a minute. And he sees everything that's going on, and wander around a little bit. But a couple years later, my buddy texts me and goes, hey, the kid that you gave the tour to? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, he's going into turf management. He's going to go to University of Wisconsin, and he thinks he's at least going to start in golf course management, but still loves baseball, played in high school and all this. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. Tell him congratulations. And he's like, well, he wants to text you and send you a thank you. Can I give him your number? So Owen texts me and says, hey, man, thank you so much. You don't understand the impact it made, but just taking a little bit of time to talk with me there and to bring our family out there. It makes a difference in the world. It's something I realize is a career and I want to go into. Flash forward to this fall, he texts me again, just out of the blue, and says, hey, man, I worked in golf, and he's like, it's great. I loved it. I got to learn a lot of stuff, but my heart's in baseball, and I wanted to let you know I was going to apply for an internship to Brewers. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, so anything you can do that would help me out, or anyone over there you can send it to. I said, man, I've been out of the game for a couple of years. Like I know Ryan Woodley over there. I don't know him super well, but yeah, put your name in the hat and see what happens. And he calls me back or texts me back a couple of weeks later, and it's like, man, I'm going to do it. And I said, what? And he goes, I got offered the job, man. So I'm going to go on and be their intern this year. And I was like, that's so cool, man. Like, just unbelievably cool. But yeah, it was one of those things that just when he said he was going to Wisconsin, even to start the program, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, that's amazing. Like, just, I had to tweet it out there because it's like one of those things that when you realize after the fact that like it was something that to me seemed like something really little to do, not a big deal, but to see how the impact it's had on that guy, to recognize that an industry exists, to find something he loves to do and to get into it, and put his efforts into getting into college and going to a good turf school like University of Wisconsin is. It's just awesome, man. That's about as good a feeling. I always tell people, like, that's a great feeling, getting your interns when your interns get a full-time job. Those things are the absolute parts that are like lifeblood of this industry, man. Because there's a day when all of us decide we're not going to be doing it anymore, or we move over to a different segment of the industry. There's always someone that's coming in behind you to fill your shoes, and you just want them to be as prepared to handle it as you were.
I mean, I try to get everyone to understand that, like it doesn't take much, it's not like we have to like go out there and change the world to make sure that someone sees what a sports field manager is or golf course superintendent. It's just the little things, taking a kid and put him on a field and at that level, and maybe they don't end up at that level, but they end up in turf management. Like that's just
Yeah.
all it takes is one moment. And
It's amazing. And I felt bad because when he texted me this fall and said he was going to the Brewers, I was like, oh man. It wasn't that I didn't want him to go to the Brewers. I had been trying to get him to go to University of Michigan to go work for Jay DeMink. I was like, oh man, I would have wanted to send him over to Jay because Jay runs a fantastic internship program too. And Billy down at soccer usually gives a lot of opportunities for the interns to pick up at both those facilities. So it was like, oh man, I was really, really hoping I could talk him into going to University of Michigan.
Dang it, Ryan.
I know. I was like, oh, come on, man. But no, I mean, I'm sure he'll get a fantastic experience at the Brewers. It's been I know for him, he grew up a Brewers fan. It's a lifelong dream to get a chance to work out there. Even if, like he said, he was like, man, even if I just interned 1 year and I go anywhere else in this industry, I'll be happy sleeping at night knowing that I got to work a season for the Brewers. So that seemed pretty cool.
Hopefully they do well this year for him. That'll make it even better, right?
There you go. That's right.
Now they are the Brewers, so I'm not gonna like have high hopes or anything. I'm a Mets fan, so it's not any better. So
okay, there you go.
We spend the money and we don't get anything in return, obviously, there's a lot that goes into that next generation. What are some things that you think that we could do better as a group, as a whole, when it comes to whether it's the little things or more? I know SFMA just started a mentorship program that I'm actually a part of. It's been great. I've got a assistant out of Rail Salt Lake, Braden Burge. He's an awesome guy, just young, trying to figure out what he wants to do and how to do it. But what are some of the things that we can do better as a whole? And obviously with your internship program, again, top of the line from everyone that I've heard from, whether that's, people who were in it, people who were a part of it. What are some things that we could be doing better?
Man, it's tough because I think that, there's so many avenues to go on, and a lot of it comes down to, like, I used to tell all the kids that would intern with us when they'd get there, the biggest thing for me was like, you can't be the quiet person. Like, it doesn't matter if you're introverted in general, like you have to ask questions. Like, you have a finite time at whatever facility you go to for an internship, like spend that time to develop every skill possible. And that's not just learn to mow a field or learn to patch bullpens. That's every avenue. If you want to sit there during a baseball game and talk to me for 2 hours about agronomic programming, like those are the conversations to be had as an intern. And don't feel like, I tell people, if you go to an internship and someone doesn't want to do those things with you, that's the worst internship you could have had. There's some people who want to put a name on a resume, but afterwards they're like, man, I didn't get half the internship I was hoping to there. So the biggest thing, if as a student, would be to evaluate those internships and find out what is a high quality internship and understand that. And I think Tristan, that came out of Michigan State's program this year, I can't remember if she's going to work for Tony Leonard at the Eagles, and she worked for Mitch last summer at the Whitecaps. Jada Mink and I did a scholarship interview with her for one of the Michigan Sports Field scholarships, and we talked to her about how'd you decide to go to Philly, and she went through all of the background research she did for her internship before she even got to interviewing with Tony or any of his folks. And I sat there and I thought to myself, I said, that's someone who in this industry will lead in 5-10 years, because it's not the idea of like, hey, I just sent a resume in and hopefully someone calls me. Like, this girl had done the entire background checkout on every person. She had called previous interns that had worked for Tony and talked through with them to find out if it's a quality internship. And I thought to myself, I'm like, that's the kind of stuff from a student level that, I mean, I certainly know I didn't do it at that age.
I didn't do it.
I'm in awe by the kids and how, and again, a lot of it is obviously more accessibility nowadays to people, but like, holy cow, she was on it. And I looked at Jay, I was like, probably the best answer I've ever heard of a question for anything. Like, She had it nailed out exactly. But I honestly, from that intern standpoint, it's making sure you're getting a good experience, making sure you're not just taking the convenient thing, getting out of your skin when you have a chance to get out of your skin and go somewhere else. When I was 20 years old, I moved to Round Rock, Texas, and was taking an internship in Bermuda grass. I'd never seen Bermuda grass other than on a heat tunnel and on campus at Michigan State. And was like, I got to get outside and do something else. And I want to work in baseball. At that time, I sent out my internship, resume stuff to like every minor league team I could find an address and a contact for. And Dennis just happened to call and was like, "Hey man, I've never had an intern, but if you got a place to stay down here, come on, man. Like, let's do it." And it's been one of the most beneficial things in my career was just finding an internship that was fantastic for me. That was, great from learning, from hands-on, and being able to grow into a great person. So
Absolutely.
from the industry side, man, there's avenues on everything. There's so much education out there, and I think honestly, whether it's traditional education or otherwise, there's every organization has information on something or another. And I mean, some of my best customers on the lawn care side, they'll tell me, I listened to this podcast or I was listening to this, and you can tell the guys who do countless hours of research for their business and that are, that like they can find information anywhere. So they're trying to figure out how to value the information as good or otherwise, but there is so much information out there. It's like you can look anywhere. And so, yeah, just finding good, high quality information has been easily the accessibility of it nowadays is what's amazing to me. I mean, I listen to Travis Shaddix's podcast every week. I mean, that's fantastic. I listen to the Grass Factor on the podcast side. Like both of those are just really true people giving you honest answers. And it's like, lawn care YouTube, I could go through anything. I could pull up anything to watch. I spend time doing the same thing where you have to find quality information that you can trust. And so from that side of it, anyone can grow any which way. There's a ton of people getting into this industry non-traditionally that are coming from, whether they started out of high school working as a mower on a crew at a city field somewhere. Like people come out of every nook and cranny when they find this industry to get involved. So I think it's just, making sure they use their networking to build their information base. And then obviously every avenue that's out there education wise to, whether it's free or otherwise, to find their best way to grow their knowledge.
Absolutely. Now I asked these two questions to wrap up just to sort of gauge where everyone's mind's at when it comes to their work, where they're going, what they're doing. Obviously this isn't to make things easier on you or change anything really. But if there was one thing that you wish you knew going into turf grass management, what would that one thing be and why?
One thing I wish I knew when I entered turf grass management and why. Trey Rogers always said it, I guess, and I never really took it to heart until I got a couple of years out there. But just the simple comment of guys, he started Turfgrass 232 with it. So it was our intro to turf at MSU. Trey walks out in front of the class and he goes, "Hey guys, I'm going to tell you something today, and it's not going to shock you, but someday you'll get it. And that's grass dies." And he said it and he stopped. And Trey's one of the great speakers when it comes to like just being able to carry a room. But he paused for so long, and all the kids are kind of looking around like, "The hell?" Like, yeah, obviously it dies. And he goes, "There's going to be a day where you realize you've either gone too far with something or you've, not covered your protectant side." He's like, "Grass is going to die, and you're going to have to figure out in your career either how to save it or how to grow it back." And he goes, "The sooner you guys learn that, the better off you'll be." And so my point to that isn't, we all know everything's finite in life, right? But the work-life balance that some of us take on, understanding that at some point in the day, you can't control every aspect of that grass. It's going to die no matter what you do. And just understanding that your limitations in life are not directly tied to that grass blade plant gives you a whole different look on the industry. I mean, when I went to Cincy, Derek, it's the head groundskeeper there. Derek was like so protective of the field, and Doug had been very protective of the field. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he and we got probably 3 or 4 years down the road, and he was like, "I've kind of just understood you, and the further we've gotten this, that, if people are going to ruin your grass, as much as you want to fight them and do all these things about it, something bad's going to happen that you can't control." I said, "Yeah, Derek." And he goes, "So we care a ton, but we just have to kind of like understand that at some point, no matter what we do, something will die." And I said, "Yep, that's it." And I mean, you can put out every batting practice mat and every concert flooring and whatever, and something's going to kill something that you couldn't control. But at the same time, you got to realize like you're not less of anything in this industry because that happened. Mistakes happen, accidents happen, things die. It's all about how you come back from that once they die. And that would be my thing that like I used to get so worried about it. And now I see stuff and I'm like, man, why is that guy so wrapped up in it? And I'm like, because that's his livelihood, right? That's what he
Yeah.
feels like with it. But at the same time, you look at it coming out of the industry, and I wish I had told myself at 20 years old, like, listen, man, you can go home a couple hours earlier if something's going on, spend some more time with your family. There's those things in life that, the grass doesn't care if you're if something terrible in your family life happens, the grass doesn't care, man, at the end of the day. So spend that time with family, spend it with friends when you have the opportunity, and try to set forth that in your schedule.
Love that. My boss, my old boss used to say, grass is easy. Don't overthink it. The moment you start overthinking it is the moment that you're going to screw up. I'm like,
That's right.
Okay.
100%.
This is the groundskeeper of the Steelers. I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't overthink anything. Come on. Come on, Chris. There's no way. But no, it's funny. It's very true, and I love that. It's incredible. Now you sort of answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I think it's very important, especially for kids in my class and young industry professionals out there. What would be your best words of advice, for someone going into the industry, being able to grow, and what would be something that you would, maybe have them do to better optimize their career moving forward?
David Gilstrap at Michigan State was another one of the great professors there that I think he still teaches the online program for the non-majors. David used to always say, he goes, half of turf grass is what you know, the other half is who you know. And he goes, and I mean, not to underscore it, obviously, everyone sees the networking you can do and all the online stuff now with X and with TikTok and Instagram and all the things that are out there that guys are doing. But he goes, the number one thing is, he goes, half of it is what you know, half it's who you know. Doesn't matter if you're in golf course management, doesn't matter if you're in sports fields. If you have a network of people, of peers that you can ask questions to, that respect you, they're going to give you real answers. Doesn't matter if whether you love your job or whether you're looking for a job, someone's always going to help you out. So building that network and building true friends that you can trust across the country, it goes a long way, man. I've moved halfway across. Have moved 1,300 miles across the country, and I've moved back now to Lansing. And it's like you build those relationships, and there's those people that you have those relationships with that you can tell. It doesn't matter that I'm out of somebody's territory and I'm never going to sell them a product. I've got people that we call all the time. I call Alex Paul now down at, it's an Iowa State grad that went through my internship. I mean, he's down at Nashville SC with Adam Portnier. That Adam was one of my interns in Texas. Those two guys, I call either from any time and just, shoot the S with them, see what's going on, touch base with them. I mean, Alex calls me all the time and we just chit chat back and forth. We text back and forth on stuff, but like knowing that you have people across the country you can always lean on or call on. I mean, I might not be looking at their transition when they go through it this spring, but he'll call me and be like, "Hey, here's how we're at. Here's how it's going. We think we're on the right track." And it's just another set of ears to hear. If nothing else, like I'm never going to look at his field. Probably, I'll go down there for a soccer match maybe once while he's there. But like it's the biggest component of this industry, and obviously everyone knows how tight of an industry it is. But I can't underscore it for anybody getting into this industry that you got to be able to get out there. You got to make friends, and whether you're comfortable on a local level, on a regional level, or on a national level, it's a huge part of it. It's a huge component of it.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think you said it earlier was you talked to Tom Burns, not ever working for him or ever, doing anything. You're just best of friends. And that's what's great about the conference and everything. You have those moments where you're like, I haven't seen you since the last one, and yet we are still here, having the greatest time ever,
Oh, sure.
So yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. This has been incredible, and I'm sorry to get you while you're on the road.
No worries, man.
I appreciate it so much. So I hope you have safe travels the rest of the way.
All right. Take care.